Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Gay with God podcast. I am Midge Noble, your host, and I am also the author of Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith, Honoring My Story. Today, I have a guest. I'd like to introduce you to Tad Hopp. He was born and raised in Texas. He grew up in the Presbyterian Church, USA. When he was 12, he knew he was gay, but felt ashamed of it, not proud. He used to lie awake at night and beg God to make him straight. Since God couldn't or wouldn't, he went through an atheist phase during his teenage years. His church family was important to him, so he continued to show up at church every Sunday. He was the poster child for how to model being a Christian youth, as he was very active in his church, even attending a Presbyterian-related college. He graduated with his bachelor's in English from Austin College in Sherman, Texas, and moved back home to save money while he figured out his next steps in life. A couple years later, he applied to do a Presbyterian mission year. He had always wanted to live overseas, and this sounded like the perfect opportunity to do that. Unfortunately, the chance to move overseas was denied to him because of his sexuality. He did opt to do the same program in Chicago, and that experience changed his life. It led him to follow God's call to go to seminary, an environment where he really blossomed. Tad got his Master's of Divinity from San Francisco Theological Seminary and managed to secure a job as a hospital chaplain in San Francisco shortly after that. That experience was a rough one for him, and he realized that chaplaincy was simply not the right fit. So after that ended, he got a job working at a Presbyterian church as their communications director. This felt like a natural fit for his gifts and abilities. However, the church environment was not healthy, and he soon realized that it was not a good place for him. Tad opted to take a break from church to heal from the trauma of working there. This ended up being the best decision he could have made. He found himself with more free time, more energy, and more enjoyment. He eventually opted to leave the ordination process and Christianity altogether. He ended up joining a local gay softball team, which is how he wound up meeting his husband. They were married there in 2024. At the end of 2025, he opted to relocate to Amsterdam to finally fulfill his dream of living abroad. Tad runs a coaching business in which he helps gay men heal from religious abuse, trauma, and shame. Because he had to do the work of healing all by himself, he realized that no one should have to do that alone. So now he accompanies others on their own healing journeys. He combines his training in pastoral care, in counseling, chaplaincy, his certification in life coaching, and also brings his own lived experience with church abuse and trauma to his work. In his spare time, I don't know how he would have any, but in his spare time, he enjoys running, hiking, books, movies, board games, and has recently got into Dungeons and Dragons and tarot. Tad, welcome to the Gay with God house. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, you are so welcome. So there's a lot to unpack there in your life. So tell us your story.
Yeah, so for me, a lot of the big stuff was already covered in my bio, but growing up in Texas in the 90s, there were no gay people on TV. This is before Will and Grace, way before Glee. So there was no one in my life that I could look up to as like a positive gay role model. So when I knew I was gay when I was 12, I realized, well, I have no one to look up to. There's no one that I can look to as like, this is what a positive gay role model looks like for me. So I felt a lot of shame because I had no one to look forward to, like, this is what a gay person can look like. And how I knew I was gay is, I had this really big crush on a classmate in my sixth grade class. I thought it was really cute. I would have dreams about us making out in McDonald's.
Wow.
Like I didn't want to date him. I didn't want to have sex with him because like those were not part of my like vocabulary yet. But I just want to like let's kiss in McDonald's. That sounds really that sounds romantic. That sounds fun. but I was like, oh no, wait, I have feelings for a boy. He's a boy, I'm a boy. What does this mean? Like
Hmm.
and even though I went to a progressive Presbyterian church, I was very lucky in that respect. But um, most of my friends were Southern Baptist or evangelical Christian
Hmm.
or Methodist or whatever. And so there was no one around to say, oh, being gay is okay.
Right.
Like my friends were all very much like, oh, well, being gay is a sin, or gay people go to hell, or like, oh, you chose to be gay. Like there was all that. So I knew for myself that I could not come out
Hmm.
because I would have no friends. I'd be isolated, ostracized, all those things. Now since I've been told by friends who knew me back then, like, oh, I would have protected you, I would have defended you, but I didn't know that at the time.
Well,
You
no.
know, a 12-year-old doesn't necessarily know who his friends are going to be or who's going to support him when he comes out. You don't have a concept of that, especially in 1996. There was no
Right.
one
Right.
really that I knew of. So I just didn't feel comfortable telling anyone.
Hmm.
So I kept it bottled up inside. I
Mm.
would pray to God every night, take it away. I want to be straight. Please make me straight, or send me a woman who will help me become straight. I figured like the
Hmm.
right woman will come along and she'll be like, oh, you're actually straight all along. I thought that would fix me.
Yeah.
That's not how that works.
No.
I thought it did at the time, of course, but that's not
Sure.
how it works.
That's the hope of a
Um,
child.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I became an atheist during those years because I just why would God make me this way if God couldn't change me? Like, why
Hmm.
would God ignore my prayers? Because God knew how much I was suffering and struggling with this sexuality, and why
Hmm.
would God keep me that way?
Right.
So I went through a lot of that, but I still went to church every Sunday, even though I was atheist. I still because that was my family. My family was
Hmm.
at church. Like those people there raised me, they supported me, they loved me. That was my people. So I was there every single Sunday, every week for years.
Hmm.
So.
Was it hard for you to go to church and feel like I have this truth and I can't share it with the people that are raising me and who love me and support me? How hard was that battle to keep it inside?
Oh man, it was really hard. I mean,
Hmm.
I know looking back that my church family would have been totally supportive and would not have had a problem with it. But at the time, I couldn't see that.
Yeah.
I look back and I'm like, yeah, they were very supportive and very pro-gay. But I didn't necessarily have that reckoning at 13. Because
Right.
what teenager does?
Right. Right.
Mm.
And especially with
So I just was
all
like,
of those messages that God, you know, can be vengeful. I mean, a lot of kids are afraid of that.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought that God hated me. I thought that
Hmm.
God didn't love me or that God didn't care about me. I was very suicidal for all those years. I went through a long period of that. I also was great in an abusive household. My stepfather was very verbally abusive to me and emotionally abusive to me and my mom. And
Hmm.
so it was a really rough time. I had like no friends. I didn't really have a
Hmm.
family. I was really all alone for all those years, and that was really hard. And I'm amazed I got through it. But there was something that like would not let me kill myself. I was like, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to make it through this. Um, and I don't know what that was. I don't know if that was God or the universe or my future self looking back and protecting me. I don't know, but
Hmm.
for whatever reason, I just could not commit that act. Could
Well,
not take that step.
well, thank God. Thank God
Yeah,
that you
I
didn't,
agree.
because
Yes, for sure.
but
Yeah.
that strength in you that you had, that internal pull to go into the future, not knowing how long you're going to be struggling. I mean, that was incredibly strong. And for that years that you were younger and all that, just was such an internal strength.
And I had these voices in my head every day telling me that I was worthless, that I'd never amount to
Mm,
anything, that I should just die, that nobody
mhm,
would love me or nobody come to my funeral if I died.
mm.
And of course I know those voices are wrong now, but when you're 14, 15, 16, you don't necessarily think that. You think like, oh, these voices are right. Like nobody loves me.
Of course.
No one cares about me. If I died tomorrow, no one's gonna be at the funeral at all. I
Hmm.
was getting bullied a
Right.
lot in high school, so like I was like, yeah, everyone will throw a party if I die. I'll
Mm,
be happy I'm gone, that kind of stuff. So
mm. So during that time, was there even one person that you hung closest to that gave you that strength? Was, I know you said your whole church family was very supportive, but you know, Can you think back to like a person that would say the right things even though they didn't know they were saying it to you, or you know, any kind of
That's a
anchor?
good question. I guess maybe my pastor was pretty
Mm,
good about that. He was very much like, I didn't tell him I was gay, but he knew like there was a lot of stuff going on for me. Like, he knew my home life was
yeah.
really hard and that
Hmm.
school was hard. And so like he really like gave me the strength to keep going and reminded me that God loved me and that,
Hmm.
God was with me and all that, which really was days.
Mm. Well, then we'll send up good energy for that pastor back in the day to be that beacon of light for you, even though you were still struggling so deeply. Did you ever come out to your family?
Yeah, so I finally came out when I was 25. So a little later than I had. It took me 13 years to come out. And by then my stepfather was not in the picture anymore. He'd been gone for a little bit by then. So it was just me and my mom and my brother. And that conversation went really, really well, actually. I was very surprised and shocked and grateful.
Hmm.
And the reason I came out, actually, the catalyst for it was I started dating this guy, and he was like, he'd been out for a while, and he was like, it's really important to me that I'd be able to hold your hand in public, or I'd be able to kiss you, or be able to come over to your house without having to worry about your mom knowing or whatever. So I really need you to like come out if you want to be with me.
Hmm.
And I was initially like, okay, I don't know if I can do that. I'm not sure I'm ready. I don't know if I can do that. But then I was like, this guy is important to me. I want this to work. So I'm willing to come out for him. And it wasn't just for him, obviously, it was for me, but it was like, I really wanted to make this thing work between us.
Hmm.
So I was willing to come out for him. And I told my brother first, and he was like, I've known since you were 15. I love you. I support you. It doesn't matter.
Wow.
Um, Yeah, I mean, like I never really been very good about hiding it. Let's be real. I mean, I was very
Hmm.
effeminate.
Okay.
Was not athletic at all back then. So, I got teased a lot, called gay all the time anyway. So I think a lot of people knew,
Yeah.
but they didn't. But I hadn't said anything.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So he was the first person I told, and then I told my pastor of my church. We had a different pastor by then. I told some friends. I told my mom. Finally, that was the hardest one with my mom
I bet.
because my mom had never been explicitly anti-gay or pro-gay, but she had
Hmm.
never. I didn't know where she stood on it.
Hmm.
She
Hmm.
swears something next, she's like, I would have always loved you. I would never have done anything. And I was like, yeah, but you never explicitly said you were pro-gay. You never said anything pro-gay ever. So how was I supposed to know that? She's like, well, I grew
That's
up in
right.
California. It's like that's not enough.
Yeah.
Like I need to hear you say that you support gay people, that you're okay with
Yes.
them.
Yes.
So I did come out to her finally, about a week or so after I came out to my brother. Um, and she was like, you're still my son. I still love you. That hasn't changed.
Mm.
And that acceptance meant so much because I
Hmm.
know what it's like as a queer person when your family doesn't support you.
Hmm. Yeah.
I've seen it. We see it all the time in the news. We see it all the time in social media. Like people who come out and their families reject them and kick them out.
Yeah.
And I was worried that would be my story. Even my boyfriend at the time was like, "Yeah, if your mom thinks about, let me know. You can come stay with me temporarily, but first thing out."
Oh.
So, and
Yeah.
he was actually kind of shocked that my mom was. He was like, "Yeah," she was like, "Yeah," she was fine with it. He was surprised.
Yeah. And probably disappointed because maybe he wanted you to go ahead and move in now.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we did break up shortly after that, but
Yep. Yep.
other reasons. But anyway,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, but it was just like it was one of these like he could not conceive of the idea that that a parent could support their child being gay because
Yeah.
his parents did not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he was shocked that my mom was so supportive,
Mm.
and I was too actually.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah,
I mean, with no information, our brain creates all the worst case scenarios to prepare us for the worst, and you just never know.
yeah.
I remember that growing up in conservative church, I mean, I got all the worst case scenarios about abomination and God sending you to hell and all this kind of stuff. And I was I was 30 before I came out, even to myself. even though there were clues. If I could have paid attention, there were clues. And lots of people, even my mother, would ask me all the way through high school, ask me if I was gay. And I'm like, no, because I knew how everybody thought about that. And I just kept saying no. She asked me multiple times, even in college, she asked me multiple times, and I kept telling her no. When I finally figured it out when I was 30, she had quit asking. I wanted her to ask me one more time. I was so prepared to answer it and come out to her, and she quit asking. And so finally I had to do it myself. But they did not take it well. I did it in a letter because I was scared to do it face to face. And my dad apparently like just threw the letter across the floor, wouldn't even talk to me. I'd called him the night. There was a night that my sister gave birth and it went tragically wrong. So I needed to call home and let them know that she was going into emergency surgery. And I called home and my dad wouldn't even take the phone call because he heard my voice. He hung up on me 3 times because it was my voice and he wouldn't even listen to me. And finally, he handed it to my mother because I said, Debbie's dying. And so he just handed the phone to my mother and she took the call. But it is amazing how empty you feel when the people who raised you don't want to hear your voice or don't want to have a relationship with you. Now over time things eased up, but those were also the messages in my head that was in your head that they would never accept me. It will never be okay. And even for people who had that rough experience, for us to try to remember that evolution is always somewhere else other than where we are right now. That the worst case scenario that we're living through right now is not necessarily what's going to be in the future. And our last chapter is not written.
I wish I'd had the bravery to come out when I was 12 or 13. I really wish, because
Yeah,
I think I would have been fine. I mean, my mom would have been fine with it, but
yeah,
I didn't know, and there was no way
yeah.
to know until you do it.
But I think that although I understand that, I think that your journey is so incredibly helpful to people now that you work with because you went through the pain of doubt and fear and condemnation. And so you are now prime, like you said, you had to do it all yourself. You had no answers, you had no role models. And so now you know the pain that your clients potentially are going through right now, and you can be that voice of understanding. You know exactly how that feels. From your perspective, it may be different in their perspective, but it's close enough to know
Mhm.
and empathize with that pain. And when I look back on the different things in my life that have caught, as they say, brought you to your knees, I mean, the things that I thought would destroy me later, those things are exactly why I was supposed to be working with somebody I'm working with, or how I can interject with somebody else and empathize with their pain because
Mhm.
I've lived it in some fashion. And so those of us who are very empathetic and we feel feelings deeply, it usually comes from deep pain that we lived through. And we can't, sometimes we would want to wish that away, but how much more frivolous would we may be feeling now because we weren't connected to that pain?
Mhm.
And that's why I'm so grateful that you were able to live through that and hold on to whatever strength was in you to not kill yourself, because all the people that you've helped since then, all the
Mhm.
journeys that you've been a model to, that never would have happened.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely feel that, and by the time I came out, I had lost touch with all my conservative Christian friends. So I had
Hmm.
kind of been since high school. So
Hmm.
the people who were in my life at that point were people who I knew would be okay with it, who I knew would be
Hmm.
like, my best friends from college and people I met since college and people from my church. Like I knew they'd
Yeah.
all be fine with it. So I knew
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, so in your life now, what brings you great joy?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I'm a very proud cat dad. I have a cat. She brings me great joy all the time. She's a blessing and a curse, at the same time,
As
yeah,
most
cats
cats
are.
are.
Yes, yeah. I my husband has not made the move over to Amsterdam yet. He's going to
Oh,
later this year, but we talk every day. So talking to him brings me great joy. He's a lot of fun. He's very chatty and very active and engaged, and Yeah, so that brings me great joy. The work I do with clients, helping them,
Mm-hmm.
heal from trauma, from the shame, from the abuse they suffered in church
Mm-hmm.
settings. It's work that I find so necessary and so important in this
Mm-hmm.
world because, we can't live our full out selves if we haven't healed from the trauma that the church inflicted on us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
One somebody told me well, they didn't just tell me, they showed me. So have you been in this situation where you're in church and as you explained, if you were afraid to come out because you might not be accepted by a church if they found out you were gay. And then later in life, and so that was what was similar to me. And then later in life, kept being pulled back to church. I'd left the church for probably 10, 15 years and I was done. And I liked a lot of spiritual things, but not necessarily religious things, and I was done. But then I kept getting that pull to come back and that pull to come back. When I started to open up my coaching business, I started thinking about the things in my life that maybe I hadn't cleared myself. If I'm going to help other people get clarity, what have I not cleared? And the first thing that popped into my head was, you're scared to go to church. And I thought, what? What do you mean I'm scared to go to church? I don't need church. I don't need,
mhm.
and then it just kept nagging at me and nagging at me. And so finally, I decided that I was going to get to a church and go in it at some point to prove that I'm not afraid of it. But I was terrified. I was terrified of that religious trauma. I was terrified of abuse. I was terrified for anybody else in a church to tell me I was going to hell. And it took me a year to actually get into a church building and go into the sanctuary. I'd done other
Mhm.
things, like there was an Episcopal church in our town, and they were doing mass on the grass. And the I'd met the priest during a human race, and he said, Midge, why don't you just come and join us outside at the little campground that we have next to the church, and to come to mass on the grass and just get to know the routine and meet some people. No big deal. It's just all outside. It's not really, you know, a big commitment. You can come, you don't have to come, whatever you want. And so I came one day, and I kept giving myself little tricks. I'm like, oh, well, this is not really church because it's outside, and church is not outside, it's always inside. So I'm not really in church. So he goes through the whole mass and I take the Eucharist and everything, but I'm not in church. And that lasted through that summer. And then I was walking across the pavement, going up to Mass on the Grass one day, and this lady interrupted me. And she said, "Excuse me, are you going to Mass on the Grass?" I said, "Yeah, it's right up here," because I didn't know her. And she says, "Oh, but we're doing it inside today." And I'm like, "We're what?" I said, "Inside what?" She said, "We're going inside the church." And I'm like, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, in the chapel." I said, "The chapel, not the sanctuary, like a chapel?" She goes, "Yeah, it's a chapel, but the weather's changing, so we're going to start doing it inside." So I go and she takes me by the arm, good Christian woman that she is, takes me by the arm, just guides me into this little chapel, wood, really nice little place. And the priest then had a dog that they called Chaplain Casey. She was like always in the church and always around. So she kind of greets me at the door, and then she must have sniffed the like terrified fear in me, and she just walked right with me. I get to a pew, back row. She sits right in the opening of that row so that I could not get out. And every time I would come to the chapel, she would always find me and sit right at that little opening. But it did take me a year of all of that to get into that sanctuary. And the day that I went in the sanctuary, I was just absolutely shaking. And it was just this physical response to all that pent up fear. So then I find out that a friend of mine now has, like, at that time, she like left being my friend, but she just quit communicating with me because now I'm on the dark side because I went back to church. So when I'm in church, my church friends left me because I was gay. And then I finally get back to church, and my gay friends are like, now you're in church, we can't like you anymore.
I have definitely struggled with that too.
Yeah.
I had a really good gay community in San Francisco before I left, and some of them knew my background about church stuff and some didn't, and I was always
Mhm.
concerned about bringing it up because I was like, oh,
Yep.
I don't have this conversation right now with people. So I just a lot of times I wouldn't even bring it up. I'd just be like, yeah, I went to grad school and stayed afterwards. I didn't even know what grad school was. I didn't say what I did or what I got a degree in because I just didn't have the conversation because like with gays and religion, it's always a mixed bag.
It is. It is. And that religious trauma is so powerful because we
Mhm.
learned it in our developmental years. And anything you learn from birth to five, it really does kind of get its grips in you. And it comes up time after time, especially when we're looking at all the Christian nationalism of today. I mean, it is wicked out there for our community. Absolutely wicked.
I mean, that's one of the first things that really turned me off of Christianity was just seeing how many Christians were so supportive of the Trump
Hmm.
regime. And
Hmm.
I was just like, I don't know like what's going on here. Like that's not the God that I believe in or the God that I worship.
Hmm.
Like what? And
Hmm.
I mean, and no one that I was well, one person I was good friends with was a Trump supporter, and she was like, yeah, he's gonna be great for our country. And I was like, you do realize that like he hates me, right? And she's like, no, he doesn't. And we had a big blow up about it, and then she stopped speaking to me. And we haven't
Sure.
spoken since 2016.
Wow.
And that was the real loss because she was one of my really good friends. We've been
Oh,
friends
yeah.
for a while, and
Hmm.
I was like, I can't have you in my life anymore if this is how you're gonna be, Like she just she
Hmm.
didn't get it. And and she was the only one she was the only one I really knew that was like a big Trumper person. So,
Hmm.
that was fine. But just that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth for Christianity in general. It was like, oh,
Hmm.
they're supporting this guy. Like, what's going on here?
Hmm.
And it kind of made me start to question, like, well, why am I part of this faith tradition?
Hmm.
And of course, seminary didn't help that either because I learned a lot in seminary about the Bible and about God and about Jesus, and a lot of it was stuff that made me go, "Oh, I never thought about that before." Well,
Hmm.
okay then, let me think.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of that too.
Yeah.
Um, so my faith really went through a really rocky period during those years, and then I I was working at. I'll back up a bit. So I mentioned in my bio that I wanted to serve overseas, wanted to live overseas, and so I
Hmm.
applied for this program that would have sent me overseas, and this was maybe 6 months after it came out, so I was newly out,
Hmm.
and they found out during the interview that I was gay, and they said, "We're sorry, we can't let you go overseas,"
Mm.
because they didn't have any sites that I could serve safely at as an openly gay man.
Wow.
So it wasn't about me personally, it was about my safety
Uh-huh.
because they had never encountered this problem before. They never had anyone who wanted to serve openly overseas,
Hmm.
so it had never come up. So they did not think about like, oh, we should have some places that they can go.
That would be nice.
So I spent 3 days crying
Oh.
because I was so upset and so hurt. And
Hmm.
it was my first experience with discrimination from the
Hmm.
church for
Hmm.
my sexuality.
Hmm.
And it really, really hurt. I did end up serving in Chicago, which was an amazing year. I got to work with LGBT homeless youth,
Nice.
which was a really powerful experience, let me tell you.
I bet.
Working with these people who like their parents kicked them out from being gay. Even in Chicago, where like it's a very progressive city, there was so
Hmm.
a lot of, homeless youth. Like, why?
Hmm.
What's going on here?
Hmm.
Um, And that's what led me to go to seminary because I was like, I want to do more of this kind of work, this kind of
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and then seminary was an amazing experience. I had a great community. I was loved. I was very active. I was voted most involved or something my senior year. So I was like, one of the ones people knew.
Hmm.
I was very part of that campus. And I had a great experience at seminary. I loved preaching. I loved, going to church. I loved, all that stuff, planning services. I loved all of that. And then I got my chaplaincy job at the hospital, and that was a really rough period of time. I should also add that I'm a recovering addict,
Hmm.
alcoholic,
Hmm.
and that was the time when my addiction got really, really bad
Oh.
because I was so miserable with my life that I was drinking to ignore my problems or forget about my
Yeah.
problems. So yeah, and then I started dating a guy who was very Christian and went to church every Sunday. So that actually really helped. But he also was pretty conservative for a gay guy. I was kind of surprised how conservative he was. It
Mm.
was very weird.
Yeah.
Like, how are you gay and you have this belief? What? Explain this to me.
Yeah.
So when that relationship ended in fall of 2017, I had some time to reflect on my life, and I decided to get sober, and I've
Hmm.
been sober ever since.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And AA kind of became like church to me. Like there's prayers, there's, people, somebody reads from the book, there's a
Mm-hmm.
sermon, somebody
Mm-hmm.
preaching or something. There's sharing, fellowship. It has everything that church has, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
church.
Right.
But it's in a church in a lot of cases. So it feels like
Mm-hmm.
church.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's sort of become like church for me.
Well, I think that buildings, have always been identified as the church meeting place,
Mhm.
but church can be anywhere. Do you follow Pete McNally online?
I
He's a
I know
priest,
his
but
name.
he's a priest, but he has church outside. I mean, they don't have a building. They meet outside. And he also, struggled a lot throughout his, experiences. And so I love it's not that I don't love air conditioning because I really, really do. So I like being in church, especially in the summer. But
Mhm.
it's really the body, the people.
Mhm.
And I also was very confused about the Christians who are supporting Trump. And then I started to really realize that most of the people who are supporting Trump are actually Christian nationalists. They are people that are rooted in, white supremacy and racism and bigotry. And I'm not saying every person that voted for Trump falls in that category, but the big majority of people that are radically following him are part of the Christian nationalism that is very toxic and very rooted in all that white supremacy. So I don't ever, there was a priest that filled in for us one year when our priest had left and we had all these fill-ins. And she said to me one day, she said during all this Trump stuff, and she goes, I want to get a t-shirt. And I want it on the front to say, I am a Christian. And on the back, I want it to say, not that kind. because because Christian nationalism is the furthest the thing away from Christianity. When we look at how Christ lived, who he hung out with, who he advocated for, who he loved, that's not the people who are supporting Trump. That's not the conservative Christianity. That is bigotry. Jesus is like us. We have like that little breath of divinity in us. And he was also
Mhm.
human. He probably had more breath than we do, but still, I get it. He could do miracles. but but we that follow Christ, you're following not a Christian because he was Jewish, but we are the hands and feet of the Jesus that walked this earth. And that gives me solace because I don't want to be that kind of Christian. I don't want to be. If that's what it is, I don't want it. But that's not what it is.
Mhm.
It's you and me loving people, caring, supporting, and not blindly, but sometimes very hard living our lives through addiction, through chaos, through being, disowned. That's what Jesus is all about.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I didn't leave church because of Jesus. I left church because of Christians.
Yes, yeah, yeah, that kind of Christian.
Yeah, I mean, like I know I was working in a church, and the job was okay, and then like it got really toxic really quickly. The people
Yeah,
there just got really bad,
yeah.
and they bullied the pastor out of the pulpit. She
Mm,
left,
mm,
and then 6 months later, they laid me off after being really rude to my face and behind my back, saying really horrible, awful things about me, none
mm,
of which were true.
hmm.
Just for the record, just
Just for
clear
the
the air.
record.
Yeah.
If you know me, they weren't
No.
true.
Yeah, yeah, no, but I just, the things they say, like, why are we paying you so much money when I volunteer to do your job? That kind of stuff.
Wow.
And I was like, well, a volunteer didn't want to do my job. That's why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, go ahead and volunteer and do it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
need to be doing this. I could be doing
Yeah.
something else in that time.
Yeah.
So, and they weren't even paying me that. I was part-time. They weren't paying me that much money is the thing. Like, you weren't
Yeah.
paying me that much money. So what are you talking here?
Yeah.
So, and those comments were really hurtful. And I know that they were coming from a place of fear and scarcity. And, we're in a budget crisis. Our pastor just left. It was all of that. But the way it came out was
Yes.
not kind or Christian-like,
No.
and that really turned me off.
Yeah.
And so when I got laid off in 2019, I was like, let me take a break from church.
Hmm.
it had to be Lent. And I was like, I'm gonna give up church for Lent, is what I was saying.
I love
So,
that. I'm giving up church for Lent.
and I was like, I'll come back when Lent's over and I'll reevaluate and
Yeah.
hopefully I'll be in a better place
Yeah.
with God and all that. And the funny thing happened while I was gone, I realized like I didn't miss it. I
Uh,
thought I would because I've been
uh-huh.
going for every Sunday for like 35 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't miss it at all. And that shocked me.
I bet.
And I had all this free time. I had Sundays free. I had my weeks free, like all this time to do whatever I wanted to. So
Mm-hmm.
I took up running and I took up knitting and
Mm-hmm.
I joined a softball team, which
Yep.
was like a huge shock because I'm not athletic at all. I wasn't before that. But I was like, well, I've got my Sundays free. They play on Sundays. Like I have time to do this now. Let me try it out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I met my husband.
Perfect.
He doesn't play, to clarify. He was a friend of one of my teammates, but I
Okay.
did meet him through softball, but he doesn't
Yep.
play.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, and that just ended up being my Sundays were softball. That was all
Mm-hmm.
I did. And the pandemic happened, and I was like, I don't want to go to church on Zoom or
Mm-hmm.
YouTube. I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't appeal to me. So I just stayed away
Mm-hmm.
even longer. And I was like, I wasn't sure I believed in God anymore anyway. And so I was like, let me just take some time to figure that out and
Mm-hmm.
process it, heal from my church trauma that I experienced at my last church job. And yeah, and then what happened was my mom passed away in January of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
She'd been sick for several years, so it was, and we knew it was coming. It wasn't sudden
Mm-hmm.
or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a very devout Christian woman. She was at church every Sunday for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
Loved the church, gave financially there all the time, was very
Mm-hmm.
active there. And I went back for her service, and the church was packed. And it was like all
Aw.
these people had come to say goodbye to her and to say hi to me and,
Aw.
condolences, all this stuff. And I found myself really missing having a spiritual community to grieve with.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes.
what I've been missing the last few years.
Yeah.
And so I got back to San Francisco and was like, maybe I should try church community again.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I don't know if I can do Christian again. I don't think I'm there
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So that's when I found the Unitarians,
Uh-huh.
where you don't have to believe anything, you don't have to ascribe any beliefs, you don't have to believe in Jesus or God or the Bible. They don't read from the Bible, they don't talk about Jesus or God really ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up being the perfect thing for me right then.
Oh, good. Mm-hmm.
And it was a great, very vibrant community, very active in the community. They had lots of stuff going on, so I was able to get involved right away at
Mm-hmm.
my own pace, at my own leisure.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it ended up being a way, and my husband was able to come with me. He could occasionally, we got married there in that church in 2024.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a way to ease myself back into going. And now I'm active in a congregation here, Unitarian Fellowship out here in Amsterdam.
Oh, cool.
So yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is all about, as Ram Dass said, walking each other home. And we get to decide what that means and how we get that spiritual,
Hmm.
support. And I don't think Jesus cares because Jesus never pastored a church.
Yeah.
He was Jewish, people, and he
Yeah.
read from the Torah in the synagogue, and there wasn't Christianity. We created all of that. And I'm not saying that that makes church wrong. I'm just saying we need to take a good, honest look at how we behave in our churches. And and let's just be clear. We are human, and so we're going to screw up and we're going to have,
Hmm.
bad behaviors.
Hmm.
And that's why some people get turned off of church because there are humans in there. And yes, there are
Hmm.
also self-proclaimed Christians, but we are
Hmm.
far from perfect
Yeah.
and we can never be perfect.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to walk each other home. And that just means that even when we screw up, we give each other grace and we try to come at it with some love and understanding. And you don't find that in every church, hardly ever. But, maybe the Unitarians are a little less, you know, maybe they're more chilled. I don't know.
I mean, they're not perfect. They're human too, of course.
Oh, okay. I just was gonna say, if
No,
they're
but
if they're perfect, I'm coming.
you should come anyway. It's great. They're great. They're great people. They're lovely people.
I'm
There's no toxic
sure.
theology. We don't get hung up on like God and Jesus and the
Yeah.
Trinity and all that stuff.
Yeah. right,
And no offense to people who believe in that, I'm not saying that's wrong or
right,
that you shouldn't believe in
right,
that stuff, but like for me, it was like that was not where I was anymore spiritually.
right, right. And I'm
So
glad that you found a spiritual group to hang with. That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah, the one here is very small. It's like 20 people. It meets once a month on the first
Oh,
Sunday of the month in the
nice.
afternoon. So, but
Nice.
it's a really lovely group, and they're very friendly, and they've been around for like 40 something years. So they're very well established here. So yeah,
Very, very good. Very, very
yeah.
good. So when is that man of yours going to get to Amsterdam? Seriously. It's 2026 already.
People ask me this all the time. He has a date on the calendar. He is moving December 12th or 13th.
12th or
Yes.
13th. Okay. It's a
We have
big circle.
we gotta buy the plane tickets, but yeah, I'm
Yeah, yeah,
coming
yeah.
back on in the end of November to help him get everything settled and get
Oh,
our other cat
okay.
and bring
Okay.
them both over here.
Oh, okay.
That is the goal.
That's the
Yeah,
goal. All right.
yeah,
Well, keep me posted because I need to know
yeah.
that that
I
man's
moved
over
first
there.
to get settled, to get a place, to get everything situated in our current place, and then when
Uh-huh.
he moves in the
Mm-hmm.
fall, he'll have an easier landing.
Okay. That makes
Yeah,
sense. That makes sense.
yeah. But it's been hard being long distance for a year. It's been real hard.
Well, yeah, I'm sure. And, there's so many iffy things about travel now and about, it's just weird. So, I will be praying that all goes smoothly and that all dates are, are able to be kept and everybody can do it.
That is my hope too. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm
we'll see how it
sure.
goes, but I feel good. I'm glad he's finally going to be here because it's been nice to have my husband here finally and be able to settle
Yes.
in as a couple. And yeah,
Yeah. So tell me
yeah.
about Amsterdam and gay people. What's it like?
Oh my gosh, there's actually a very vibrant gay community here. I mean, which makes sense because it's a very progressive city. But like I'm involved in, there's gay sports teams, there's gay running groups, there's gay hiking groups, there's, all kinds of different gay bars and gay activities. We just had World Pride a couple
Oh,
weeks
cool.
ago,
Okay.
which was really fun. We had the canal parade where all the boats on the canal was really awesome.
Well, that sounds great.
Um, yeah, it was so much fun. I had some friends visiting for that, and we had just a lovely time watching the boats. Yeah, it's a very vibrant day scene here. I really, really like the scene here. I'm glad I moved here. It was not an easy decision. I've been in the US for all my life, so
Yeah.
choosing to move out of the country was not something I did lightly. My family came over the Mayflower, so we've been in the US for like centuries since the founding of
Hmm.
it, practically,
Wow.
even before that. So like we are entrenched in the United States, like we are deeply entrenched.
Wow.
So choosing to leave that behind was really hard.
Hmm.
But I remember the reasons why they left their country was to escape religious persecution
Hmm.
and to start a new life. And
Yep.
that's the reason why I left the US too. So,
Yep.
and also I've been wanting to live overseas since I was 13. So I was like, this is
Yeah.
a lifelong goal of mine. I want to do this. I've got the time and the money. Let's go.
Yeah. I have several options if I needed to leave, but I, I didn't think about Amsterdam. Are they I mean English is spoken there as well, so you didn't have to learn.
It has the highest percentage of English speakers outside of a non-native English speaking country in the
Okay.
world. So
Okay.
like everyone speaks English. I almost never need Dutch, but I'm learning it,
Oh, okay.
you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's very easy to get around. The public transit's really good here, really efficient. Yeah.
So you don't have the same kind of bigotry there that we have here.
No, I mean I haven't encountered any of it. I hear that it happens in some of the smaller towns in the Bible Belt area, but I don't
Oh,
go to those places, so
yeah.
I don't deal with
Good
it.
plan. Good plan.
Yeah. No,
Yep.
I stay in Amsterdam mostly, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is so cool. That is so cool.
Mhm.
I'm happy for you. I'm happy that you're happy.
Yeah, I mean, my life is not perfect, of course. I still have
Hmm.
challenges and stuff times, and I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like, what's wrong? Like, why, all this stuff. But I persevere, and for the most part, I'm in a good place mentally and spiritually and all of that.
Hmm.
Um, my life is pretty great, and I really have no reason to complain.
Yeah.
And the reason I started my coach apprentice is because I was like, I had to do this healing by myself.
Hmm.
And no one should have to do this alone. Let me
Right.
start this company that I can help others accompany them on their healing journey.
Right.
And I allow clients to define for themselves what healing actually means because that's going to different for every person.
Sure.
For
Sure.
some, it might mean they can go to church again.
Hmm.
Some might mean they can believe a God of their understanding for the first time
Mm-hmm.
ever, a God that loves them and doesn't hate them.
Mm-hmm.
Some might mean leaving church and being able to like leave a toxic church behind you. You're so attached you can't leave. I've experienced that where you're so attached to this place you can't leave it. You can imagine like not going there every week.
Right. Yep.
You know.
You've
So
lived through all of it.
I have done it. Yeah, I've lived a lot of lives in my very short life.
That's right. You have.
Yeah.
I mean, you've gone through many, many transformations, and I also, am very aware that every time you went to something that you thought was it and it wasn't, you know,
Mhm.
that was always a letdown and a grief and a process. And then, there's the next thing and you put it all in there. And, those types of things can be devastating. And yet when we look back, we go, oh, now I can use that, and I'm using this, and I'm using that. And it's all part of that path that we thought was supposed to be straight, but it's not. It has all these U-turns and twists and turns, and it's all about hanging in there and continuing to see what the next reveal is going to be. Because we never go through the fire without a reveal and something that we
Mhm.
can use.
That will preach.
Thank you.
That will preach for sure. No,
That'll
you're right.
preach. I know, I know. I
I
did get
mean,
Go ahead.
I encountered one of the most devastating things right before I left, right before I moved. One of my best friends back home in Texas, who I'd known for over 35 years, killed himself.
Mm,
And it was one of the most like shocking things I've ever experienced in my life. I found out the
yeah.
day after from one of his friends on Instagram. I was like, hey, by the way,
Mm,
he died last night. And I was like, excuse me, what happened? What? And he was one of the first people I came out to, and he was fully
mm,
supportive, and he was an example of like how an ally should be to gay people because he
mm,
never felt threatened by my sexuality. He never felt like I was trying to
mm,
hit on him or pick him up or wanted to
mm,
sleep with him. I did have a crush on him when we were younger, but I never tried anything because I knew he wasn't into it and he wouldn't go for it. So, like he was just a perfect example of how to be an ally to someone when they come out.
mhm,
And so losing him was like a really huge
mm.
blow.
Oh, yeah.
He was also like one of the last friends I had left in my hometown. So I was
Oh.
like, well, my mom's gone, he's gone. So I really have no reason to go back home ever again.
Mm.
And that was also like a real like gut punch. I was like, oh, if I go back home, who do I see?
Yeah,
Where
who's
will I
there?
go?
Yeah.
I mean, my church that I grew up in is still there, but a lot of people there don't know me. They don't know my mom. I
Right.
mean, the pastor still knows me, of course, but that's about it. Really, everyone else has died
Hmm.
off or left. So there's not a lot of
Hmm.
people left that know me.
Wow.
I was there last year for their anniversary, and like someone asked me, "Are you a visitor?" And I was like,
Oh, oh,
"No, you sweet
no.
summer child. I've been here a very long time. I don't live here anymore."
Oh, wow.
And
Oh,
it was weird to be called a visitor in my own home church, the church
I
I grew
know,
up in. I was like,
right?
I am not a visitor. Excuse you. I've been here for
Yeah.
40 something years. Where you been?
Yeah, my mom's 92 and she's decided that she will be buried in our home church. I mean, she lives with my sister now, so that's like many cities away. And she's going to be buried in the home church, one of which, I'm highly uncomfortable in. And I, the last time I'd been in that church was on a Mother's Day. And we were
Mhm.
sitting there on a Mother's Day, and the preacher started preaching that saintly mothers raise saintly children and unsaintly mothers raise homosexuals. Well, I
Oof.
started to get up out of my my pew, and my mother's hand came over on my thigh, and she leans over and she says, I know this is going to be the last time you ever come to church with me, but don't you dare get up and embarrass me on Mother's Day. And I sat
Oh,
my
mom.
patuka bat down and I just did not listen to another word. And that was the last time. So I told my sister the other day, because now that she's 92 and she's really in this last year has been failing quickly. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to go to Mama's funeral. I said, I just don't know if I can go in that church. And she goes, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you now. I said, if you want me to stay seated, you better prep who's ever preaching. We are not having a freaking altar call at her funeral. And only
Yeah,
conservative people know what I'm talking about, but you know. And I said,
yeah.
and I will not have anybody preach about saintly mothers. They will not use that word, or I
Mm-mm.
will be up out of that pew and I will leave that funeral. She goes, okay, we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see. We'll see. The jury's still out as to whether or not I'll be a show or a no show.
Yeah.
But those are things we sometimes have to decide, right? Is what's, what do we have to do and what can we negotiate and what do we choose not to do for our own sanity and for our own, boundaries. So we'll see.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Boundaries are important. I work with clients on boundaries
Yes. Yes.
because that's so many of us have no boundaries because we're told like God doesn't want us to have boundaries. We should be open to everything. We should whatever God wants you to do, you should do. You should say yes to
Yeah.
everything. And
Yeah. Mm,
no,
no,
no, you
no.
don't.
Somebody
No, you
needs
can
to
say
read
no.
another chapter.
Yeah.
I always tell people until you tell me who made God, there's a lot of things that's not in that Bible. We need to be very
Or they're
discerning.
mistranslated.
Absolutely 1946, the mistranslation of that word.
Uh-huh. Oh
Hmm.
God, that has caused so much harm.
Yep, it really has. It really has. And I'm so proud of Rocky and getting all that done. I just hope that movie continues to spread like wildfire and people will actually see it. But, my people, um, that's propaganda. But if there's a gay person struggling with that word in church, they need to watch that movie 1946 because that'll teach them.
I gotta look that up. I haven't seen that one
Yeah,
yet.
oh, it's really good. It's all about how, and it was a gay guy that was in seminary that realized that the two words in 1946, the first time this particular word for homosexuality got put in the Bible, and it's two Greek words put together that shouldn't have been put together, which made it a same-sex thing instead of a perversion, like some kind of abuse or some other kind of way to talk about homosexuality. And it's not what we know as who we are biologically. So, and he took it, he kept writing and writing and writing and telling them that this was wrong and this was wrong. And finally, somebody listened and he met with this guy and he goes, yeah, he goes, that I can see what you're saying and you're right. And the next time we do a new translation, we will correct it. Well,
Mhm.
the Bible is only translated about every 10 years. And so
Mhm.
when the 10-year mark came up for it to be fixed, that was the 1960s, the civil unrest, gay rights, and all this other kind of stuff. So they just didn't do it because it was too much going on. And then it's never been cleared up. So you can rent that movie, 1946, The Mistranslation, or something. There's all these words. And
Mhm.
but you can rent it off of Amazon or you can, or you can, I guess you could buy it off of there, but you can look for it online and you can find it.
And my biggest problem with evangelical Christians is that like a lot of them don't actually know what the Bible says. They know what the pastor
Exactly.
tells them the Bible says. They
Exactly.
haven't read it themselves. They don't actually know what it says. They know what the pastor tells them it says. And like, well, he's ordained by God, so he knows what he's talking about. But he doesn't actually know.
No. I got a
No.
BA in theology at the Berkshire Christian College, and I had to take a course called Defense of Faith. And
Hmm.
basically, it doesn't tell you how to think about the Bible, but it tells you just what to say in order to defend whatever you're trying to prove that you've been told and you need to vomit back out.
Hmm.
So now I tell people, yes, I have a BA in bad theology.
I've got an MDiv in good theology,
There you
so
go. Yeah, you.
yeah,
You're one
yeah,
step
yeah.
ahead
I'm
of me.
in Presbyterian Seminary, very, very scholarly, very
Yep, yep,
academic,
yep,
very
yep,
progressive. So yeah.
yep.
Mhm.
Well, you'll love this movie because they go into a whole lot of research and you'll see. It's really, really
Okay.
good.
I'll have to look it up for sure.
Well, my friend, I'm sorry that this hour has come to an end. I appreciate you very much. Is there anything else that you want to share with folks before we close for today?
I just want to say if you're struggling out there, that find your community, find your
Hmm.
people,
Hmm.
because the gay community is very big and very diverse and there's
Hmm.
if whatever you're interested in, you can find someone else who's interested in it. Like it doesn't matter how obscure it is, how niche it is, how small you think it is, or insignificant. There's someone out there who's like, I like that thing too. You like that? I know you don't like that. Let's be friends. Find your people,
Find your
and that will
people.
make a big difference.
I love that. Find your
Yeah,
people. Well, I'm glad that you found me, and I'm glad that we had this conversation. Don't be a
yeah,
stranger.
I won't. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And guys, thank you for showing up every week and subscribing and sharing this podcast. And if you want to find out more ways to connect with Tad, go to empoweredmidge.podbean.com on the show page, and you can find his links there. And check out our Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do a monthly Zoom group entitled My Faith Journey. It's a small group of people, but we're really sturdy, and we like to be able to talk with each other about how life is going on the day. Sometimes we have a topic and sometimes we don't, but you're welcome to come and just share how you're doing. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQIA+, or not even sure if you're gay, God has always been within you, even when you didn't know it. You have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.